Heironimus Gate, 16 years later. Back in 2004, there was a book that was released written by Greg Long called The Making of Bigfoot, The Inside Story, in which it seemed that perhaps the Patterson-Gimlin film was in a bit of trouble. At least that's the way it seemed, anyway. That the PG film was being attacked by Greg Long, the author of The Making of Bigfoot, along with Cal K. Korff, who was the writer of the introduction to the book. This is a video of a recent interview with Cal K. Korff, and apparently he hasn't changed his mind. He still thinks the BG film was a hoax. He still thinks that it was Bob Heironimus who was the guy in the suit. It's a little difficult to hear the interview, so I'm not going to play it right here, but I will post a link to it below for those of you who want to watch it and pay attention to it, pay close attention to it. It was in 2004 that author Greg Long dug into this mess to sort everything out. Over a period of 6 years, he actually went and met face to face with all of these characters who were still alive and many other people, anyone he could find who knew Patterson and was involved in the film in any way. His entire adventure was published in his entertaining book, The Making of Bigfoot, The Inside Story. This is from Skeptoid.com, by the way. Bob Heironimus was a sturdy, hulking 26-year-old laborer who lived a few doors down from Bob Gimlin. One day, Gimlin told Heironimus that Patterson would pay him $1,000 for a day's work on a film set wearing a costume. Heironimus readily agreed. That was a lot of money. He met with the men once or twice to try on a gorilla suit and make some adjustments. Then one day he drove down to Willow Creek. He spent the night at their camp, and the next day they shot the footage. Now, this is Skeptoid, so it's taking this as at face value, taking this not with a grain of salt, but just at face value. A&E's money had also been used to buy the gorilla suit. It came from Philip and Amy Morris, established makers of gorilla suits for carnivals. They told Greg Long that they had recognized the suit when they saw the film on television, and that Patterson had asked their advice in modifying the suit to make the arms longer. They'd even shipped him extra synthetic fur, made from a material called Dynel. They also advised him to put a football helmet and shoulder pads on the suit wearer to make him look enormous. Not surprisingly, when Greg Long asked Bob Heironimus about the suit, he also mentioned that he wore a football helmet and shoulder pads inside of it. There's only one slight problem, and there's only a few problems with this. Heironimus claimed it was a horsehide suit. Greg Long claimed, "Oh no, that's what his brother said." No, it was Heironimus himself who said it was a dead red horse. It's in Greg Long's own book, The Making of Bigfoot, page 345, where Bob Heironimus himself said the suit stunk. Roger skinned out a dead red horse. That is what Bob Heironimus said and made the claim about. And then when Philip Morris was quote-unquote found, and he started selling his little shenanigans story, Heironimus switched to that. Like, oh, I better switch to that, because that makes more sense than saying that there was a dead red horse that was skinned out. Bob Heironimus then went home, where his mother and two brothers also saw the suit and waited patiently for his $1,000. In accordance with his character, Patterson never paid Heironimus a dime. When he saw the film hit big, Heironimus feared prosecution for fraud for his role in its production and so made no further efforts to collect, nor ever spoke up about it to anyone. A groundless fear, perhaps, but very real for an honest and innocent young man. Really? Is he really innocent? Is he really honest? Give me a break. He just wanted his cut of the money. He didn't care how he got it. All right, here's one thing this gets wrong. It says that Roger Patterson was 41 years old in 1967. No, he was not, because they thought that Roger Patterson was born in 1926. He wasn't. He was born in 1933. Do your basic research, people, before you put out what you think are facts. So it ticks me off when there's those who don't even bother to do the basic research. So essentially, what we have is a bunch of hearsay from those who claim that the Patterson Gimlin film was hoaxed. Bob Heironimus has become somewhat of a infamous celebrity in the Bigfoot community for claiming to have been the actual Bigfoot creature depicted in the Patterson Gimlin film. His claims are detailed in Greg Long's book, The Making of Bigfoot, The Inside Story, published 2004. This is basically stuff that I've already gone over. Greg Long, investigative journalist, uncovered testimony that this should say supposedly corroborates Heironimus' claims. Russ Bohannon, a longtime acquaintance, says that Heironimus exposed the hoax, the alleged hoax, it should say the alleged hoax, in private in around 1968 or 1969. Actually, Heironimus exposed the alleged suit about 2 or 3 days after he says he came home from Bluff Creek. Bob Heironimus, the man who wore the this should say who allegedly wore the Bigfoot costume, experienced Patterson's alleged lying when Patterson allegedly refused to pay him $1,000 for wearing the Bigfoot suit as promised. Allegedly wearing the Bigfoot suit. This site also doesn't seem to be very objective. It seems to take the Heironimus claims hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I don't believe a word of Bob Heironimus' story myself. I think he's full of more crap than a Christmas goose. If you're going to make a claim, you darn well better back it up. Otherwise, the claim is just that, a claim. Who's who in the Sasquatch community? The evidence is fairly overwhelming that Bob Heironimus was not a person in a suit faking the Patterson Gimlin film. From an overlay not matching Bob to his changing his story or showing different suits, none that matched to his motive of trying to sell his confession to tabloids. Bob Gimlin and Patricia Patterson are quite adamant that Heironimus did not have anything to do with the footage or the trip to Northern California. Author John Green says Heironimus' description of the 1967 Northern California trip and his timeline don't match up with the facts. Not by a long shot. Gimlin is equally adamant the encounter filmed in Bluff Creek that day involved a real animal, not a man in a costume. Heironimus' initial ploy was to quickly sell his quote-unquote confession to the tabloids for a heap of money. It seemed like a slam dunk. There were a few papers around Yakima that fell for the confession and printed short articles about it, but the tabloids didn't bite. With no visual evidence to back up his claim, they didn't need help to pay a heap of money to him. tabloid staff writers can fabricate more sensational Bigfoot stories on their own. There are various ways to demonstrate that Heironimus' confession is fake. Heironimus has given 3 contradictory versions of his confession to various journalists. Contradictory regarding the costume description. Specifically, he has changed his description of the costume dramatically 3 times. The contradictions are so blatant that the only reasonable explanation is that the whole story is fake. Heironimus is still not able to demonstrate a matching costume, even with expert assistance, as the Heironimus crew continues to introduce new costumes to more closely approximate the Patterson creature. The more obvious it is that Heironimus didn't have anything to do with it the first time either. Here we are. Look at this. 3 contradictory versions of the Heironimus confession. Version number 1, costume description. Heironimus said Roger Patterson killed a red horse and made a costume from its heavy, stinking hide. Quotes from Bob Heironimus in 2001. Not from his brother. Greg Long tried to claim it was his brother who said this. No, this is out of Heironimus' own mouth. Quotes from Bob Heironimus in 2001. Roger skinned out a dead red horse. The costume stunk. It weighed maybe 20-25 pounds. It was a little bit heavy. Horsehide would be heavy. It was made of 3 parts and had legs. It had a corset or middle piece between the neck and waist. And it had a head. So Heironimus' first story described his costume as a heavy costume made from the hide of a red horse. He says it stunk like a dead animal. Version number 2, costume description. Heironimus subsequently agrees that the costume was a simple gorilla costume manufactured by Morris Costumes in North Carolina in the 1960s. In the second version of his confession, the fur of the creature was Dynel nylon threads stitched to a woven cloth backing, nothing like the hide of a dead red horse that he previously described. This dramatic modification of his original quote-unquote confession was prompted by a publicity-hungry costume maker in North Carolina named Philip Morris. Morris also wanted to take some credit for the Patterson-Gimlin film somehow and possibly market a new costume. Although Morris has no records showing the sale of a costume to Roger Patterson, he is nevertheless certain that he provided the costume used in the famous footage. Morris claims that a man named Roger Patterson bought a discount gorilla costume. Somehow he remembers that sale, though there is no record of it. He also claims he recognized the gorilla costume when he saw the footage on TV one day. How coincidental. Here's the gorilla costume he spoke of. Now, will that fool most scientists? Will that sort of a costume fool the scientists who have said that the PG film is real? Version number 3, costume description. Sometime after costume description number 2, Heironimus and Morris came up with a new costume replica of the Patterson creature, which Morris said he could make more duplicates of for $7,000 to $8,000. The latest costume is a custom-made, latex-enhanced, non-stretching, quirky creation. It's a very far cry from what Hollywood special effects folks say would have been required, and nothing like the simple gorilla costume that Morris originally claimed was sold to Patterson in the 1960s, which Morris claimed he recognized on TV when he saw the Patterson-Gimlin film. At the height of the scam, television and newspaper reporters in Yakima ran with the Heironimus quote-unquote confession story without paying much attention to the blatant graphic inconsistencies. And this is the suit. This is version number 3. The late John Green took one look at that mask and said it looks more like Osama bin Laden than Patty, than the PG film creature. I happen to agree with John Green. It does look more like Osama bin Laden than Patty. And this is supposed to be the costume? Or a replica of a costume that was supposedly used in the Patterson Gimlin film? Give me a break. So, it's up to you. What do you think? And don't hold back your opinions. If you think the PG film is a hoax, explain to me why it's a hoax. Don't just say it's a hoax. Explain to me why, chapter and verse. And don't give me the old Bob Heironimus said it was. That's hearsay. I want to know what you guys really think, though. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little editorial. And until next time, y'all be good or be good at it.